the Su-7B became the standard tactical fighter bomber of the Soviet Air Force and was sold to many countries all over the world. The Su-15 Flagon twin-engine fighter interceptor was a development of the Su-9 and 11. The highly successful Su-7 had also been developed further with an uprated Lyulka turbojet and variable geometry wings. It became the Su-17 tactical fighter. At about this time, in 1969, Sukhoi and his team won a design contract for a long-range interceptor that would not only replace existing fighters of the IAPVO, the Soviet Union's air defense force, but also be able to beat the new American F-15 Eagle in air combat. At the time the requirement for the flanker was issued, the IAPVO was equipped with three main fighters: the single-seat Su-15 Flagon, the Yak-28 Buró, and this enormous twin-seat Tupolev Tu-128, NATO codename Fiddler. This was the world's largest ever operational fighter. It was over 80 feet or 26 meters long. It had a range of around 3,000 miles and a top speed of 1,150 miles an hour. Armament was 4 Ash missiles, which came with both infrared and radar homing seekers. The Su-27 requirement also stipulated that the aircraft would have a limited role with Soviet frontal aviation, the tactical air arm. The Su-27 would be used as a fighter escort for long-range interdictors like the Su-24 Fencer. But at that time, frontal aviation's most numerous fighter and fighter bomber was the MiG-21 Fishbed, which first flew in 1955 and had been designed just after the Korean War. Meanwhile, manufacture of Sukhoi fighters and bombers continued apace. With SAM missiles and interceptors, a strike aircraft was needed to penetrate enemy defenses and fly under radar at very low levels. The Sukhoi OKB failed in their first attempt, but developed the Su-24 Fencer, which, like the American F-111, was a large 2-seat swing-wing strike aircraft designed around the Soviet Union's first integrated avionics system, with a bomb sight, weapons control, and navigation systems coupled to 2 radars, one for attack and one for terrain following. If Sukhoi was to create a fighter better than the F-15, it was obvious that it had to be fly-by-wire to stabilize an unstable design. Unbeknown to the West, Sukhoi had already used a crude fly-by-wire system in his T-4 Mach 3 bomber. One of the problems with the T-4 was that the aircraft flexed a great deal in flight, so conventional hydromechanical controls simply wouldn't have worked. Back in 1967, well before America or the West, the Russians claimed to be the first in the world to have a fly-by-wire system to stabilize the aircraft. Sukhoi had already got 4 years fly-by-wire experience when the Buró started on their new design, which was eventually to become the Su-27. Vladimir Ilyushin, the son of the famous Russian designer, was chief test pilot for this experimental project. He would also head the flying team for the 27. After the United States Air Force experiences in the Vietnam War, both the Russians and Americans looked at a ground attack aircraft to operate in the heart of battle, but be able to take immense punishment from ground fire and still get its pilot back to fight another day. Sukhoi were the first to protect the pilot with a titanium-armoured bathtub. The Americans soon used the same idea in the Fairchild A-10 tank buster, which was more agile but much slower than the Su-25 Frogfoot. The prototype Sturmovik, the T-8, was first flown by Vladimir Ilyushin on the 22nd of February 1975. While Frogfoot was being put through its paces, work was started on the Su-27. The design team was led by Yevgeny Ivanov, with Oleg Samolovich as his deputy. After 2 years of preliminary design work, it's said that the final layout of the aircraft was finalized by just 3 men over a single weekend. Pável Sukhoi took a close interest in the project, which was to be his last. The hero of the Soviet Union died peacefully in 1975, unaware that his last innovation was to turn the aviation world on its ear and allow the design bureau, which still bears his name, to rise to the very summit of the Russian aerospace industry, eclipsing even the mighty MiG. The first prototype flanker, designated T-10-1, was wheeled out of the hangar for its maiden flight on the 20th of May 1977 at Tsukhovsky in the capable hands of its chief test pilot, Vladimir Ilyushin. The aircraft was a typical shape for that era, with twin-tail fins, widely spaced underslung engines, and an integrated wing-to-fuselage. To Western eyes, it was a copy of the F-15. Much later, they were to realize that this could not have been further from the truth. Those early test flights were to show up some serious design faults. It didn't have the range, and there were problems with stability which simply had to be cured. Even with modifications, the design meant that the aircraft was too heavy, had too much drag, and below expected engine thrust. It was clear that a major redesign was needed to get the fighter into shape, and the man given the task after Sukhoi's death in 1975 was Mikhail Petrovich Simonov, who was eventually destined to take overall charge of the Sukhoi Buró. By today's standards, test facilities were fairly crude, but they had to work. Everything on every aircraft had to be tested to the limit, and that sometimes meant to destruction. For instance, how would a wing tank stand up to the sort of forces that you get at high Mach numbers where vibration could simply split it apart? And how would the mechanical side of the aircraft react to the pilot? How much actual force would he need to feel realism in a fly-by-wire system? How much would the canopy expand and contract at different temperatures, from very hot to freezing cold? Even the undercarriage had to go through rigorous testing in the lab to find out just how reliable it would be, or what improvements, if any, needed doing. Every dial and the electronics that ran them had to be checked and checked again, redesigned and improved if need be. The ejection system had to work. The hood blows first.